We're recording. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Good evening. It's January 13th, 2025. This is a regular meeting of the Town Council, but includes a pause for a public forum. The open meeting law, which by the way, does expire at the end of March, but we're here, it's going to be renewed, allows us to continue holding meetings remotely without a quorum of the council physically present at a meeting location, while providing the public with adequate alternative access to the meeting. This meeting is accessible in real time by Zoom, by phone, and is a live broadcast on Amherst Media Channel 9 and through live stream. At this point, there is a quorum of the council in the room, and there are additional people on Zoom. I will call upon each counselor given that we have a quorum of the council present, I'm calling the January 13th, 2025 regular town council meeting to order at 6:31. I will call upon each counselor by the name they have indicated they would like to be addressed. At that time, please unmute your mic and say present. This will indicate that we can hear you and you can hear us. Please remember to mute your mic after saying present. Pat DeAngelis.
Present.
Anna Devlin Gauthier.
Present.
Counselor Ette.
Present.
Lynn Griesmer's present. Counselor Haneke.
Present.
Bob Hegner.
Present.
Counselor Lord.
Present.
Pam Rooney.
Here.
Counselor Ryan.
Present.
Kathy Shane.
Here.
Andy Steinberg.
Present.
Jennifer Taub.
Here.
Counselor Walker. I'm not seeing her yet. Okay, there's no chat room for the meeting. If you have a technical issue, please make sure Athena and I know about, or that we know about it. During this evening, there will be two public comment periods, one during the public forum and one during the general public comment period of the regular meeting. The order of the agenda is altered. Immediately following the call to order, I will be turning the meeting over to the clerk of the town council, Athena O'Keefe, so that she can conduct the annual election of the president. After that, the president will conduct the annual election of the vice president. The plan at that point includes a pause in the regular meeting in order to conduct the public forum. Upon conclusion of the public forum, the plan is to reconvene the regular council meeting. An executive session is scheduled at the end of the meeting. Unless otherwise informed, the council will not return after the executive session. With that, I'm turning it over to Athena O'Keefe.
I see a member of the Finance Committee, and I just want to let you know, Tom, that the public forum on the appropriations outside the budget will begin at 7 o'clock if you want to leave your camera off or come back at 7. So I'm just going to run through the process of electing the president since it's been a year since we've done this before I open for nominations. So the process is that I will open for nominations. Nominations don't require a second. Councilors may nominate themselves. When you make a nomination, you state the name only. You don't make any other statements or engage in discussion. The nominee will be asked if they accept the nomination. You just say yes or no, no discussion. And then in alphabetical order, I'll ask each nominee if they'd like to make a statement up to 2 minutes. Then I'll open the floor to counselor statements. Each counselor will be given an opportunity to make a statement for up to 2 minutes, and then we'll take a written ballot vote. Those of you in the room have paper ballots. Those of you who are participating on Zoom can send an email with your vote. After I read each vote, then I'll announce the results. We need 7 votes to elect a president. If there's no winning nominee with 7 votes, then we'll repeat the process until we have a winning nominee. Are there any questions before I begin? I'm going to open the floor for nominations. Oh, sorry, George, please go ahead.
To whom do we send an email? For those of us who are on Zoom?
To me.
To you. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, we're open for nominations. Councilor DeAngelis.
I would like to nominate my friend and colleague, Lynn Griesmer, for president of the council.
Councilor Griesmer, do you accept?
I do.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. Lynn, would you like to make a statement for up to 2 minutes?
Thank you for honoring me with your nomination. And thank you to each counselor for the many ways in which you participate in town events. What is clear to me, particularly in this last couple of years, the public notices when we show up. And the town staff also notices when we show up for events. We have just completed 6 years of this form of government. And as you are aware, our 2024 Charter Review Committee is taking a hard look at the charter. They are inviting our input and those of all residents as to what changes we should consider, they should consider in their deliberations. I am sure that each of you have thoughts about changes you would like to see or issues you would like to focus on in the coming year. My list includes some of those items I mentioned in the past, as well as some new items. For example, in the past, and still committed to, ways to make the job of the president, the vice president, committee chairs, co-chairs, and all the counselors more doable. How to effectively evaluate and prioritize issues as they are introduced to the council. And subsequently, how to increase greater understanding of the issues, the actions that the council may or may not take, and the consequences of those actions. Adding to the list, I include the following. What do we as a town council want to accomplish in this second and last year of this term? How can we improve our communications with the public? And as always, how can we shorten our council meetings? I do have some requests of you. One is that you join us for agenda setting. And if you can, do that for the entire month so that you get a sense of the flow of issues and the discussion that goes on in agenda setting. That you look at how you can contribute to shortening meetings.
Please wrap up your comments.
Thank you. Done.
Thank you. Counselor Walker, I just noticed that you joined the meeting. Can you confirm that you can hear us and we can hear you?
Yes, thank you, Athena.
Thank you. We're in the midst of electing a president. We've already heard nominations. Counselor Griesemer was nominated and accepted the nomination. She just finished her statement. I'm going to go around and ask counselors if they'd like to make a statement. You'll have 2 minutes each before we take a vote. Since you're remote, you'll just send me an email as your vote once we get to that point. Would any counselors like to make a 2-minute statement? Counselor Haneke, please go ahead.
Actions speak louder than words. For 6 years, counselors have talked about the need for change in leadership at all levels in order to maintain a healthy body. We've even adopted policies that limit the number of years residents can serve on the Planning Board, ZBA, and Finance Committee to 6. Yet for the last 6 years, the council has had the same president. Every time a counselor has challenged the current president, others have agreed that change might be good in theory, but that the challenging candidate is just not ready, or your time will come, or it's not the right time to change. Each year, including just now, which was a rehash of last year's speech, Lynn promises that she will do things different if reelected president. Counselors rely on those promises of changing practices and vote for her. Yet each year, within a few weeks or months, Lynn reverts back to her old ways. Then the next year, she makes the same promises. Counselors fall for it, vote for her, and the cycle continues. 1 year ago, Kathy stated, I think we need a change as we look to the coming year to be more inclusive, sharing talks, sharing representation that don't just need to be the president, agenda setting, much more extensive involvement. The only representation Lynn shared was ceremonial, done 3 years after her first promise to do so. Counselors were not invited to share representation at meetings with our elected representatives, the bid chamber, or others. After February, there was nary an invite from Lynn to attend agenda setting. Lynn said the words, but her actions did not follow. Again, change is healthy. I want a council president who lives up to the promises she makes regarding the presidency, and a president who shares representation and does not keep their 12 fellow councilors in the dark regarding content of meetings they attend as president that the rest of us aren't invited to. A president who says they will be more transparent every year but does not change is not leading. And councilors who say every year that they want change but then ignore the failure to keep promises and vote for the status quo are also not leading. I will be voting for none of the nominated candidates. It is not an abstention, but a formal vote against the nominated candidates.
Counselor Shane?
I appreciate Lynn's years of service as president of this council, and I do believe, following the comments that were just made, there have been changes in the last year in response to some of the things we've asked for. There have been multiple times, and I can't say how grateful I am, where items have been taken off an agenda when it was clear we were going to go till midnight if we didn't stop talking. There's been much more of an attempt, and I hope it will continue to look at what we have to achieve and only put one item on an agenda that's going to engender a lot of discussion, either a lot of public comment or a lot of council discussion. We need time to think. We shouldn't be rushed. And if it's a complex idea, give it time. We often have other things on the agenda which are not as time dependent. So I think that's been a positive change. I also very much appreciated Lynn deciding, though she gets to a point, to not be on the finance committee, to give room for people who wanted to be on the finance committee. And despite that, she made the extra time commitment to attend almost all the meetings in the audience to listen because she was concerned and interested. So I hope that continues. I will say that I think it's a symptom of other things going on that are broader than the presidency, that the council doesn't get enough people who want to run for council seats, not just enough who want to take over presidency. Some of that is the amount of time, and some of it is the extent to which we can engage in debate and real discussion. And I'll take the town manager's goals, which are coming up, which need a lot of discussion, and I hope we have time for that discussion. We should all be trying to reach yes after discussion, not try to push the discussion through. So Lynn, thank you for being willing to serve another year, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Taub.
Thank you. I had not planned to say anything, but I feel like I need to respond to what the first comment. Lynn and I bring some different perspectives, and we often don't have the same vote on issues. But I do appreciate all the time and care that Lynn puts into leading the council. And I think it would be healthy for there to, be new leadership on the council, but I don't see a lot of people stepping up. And Lynn does, and Lynn puts in the time and the effort, and you work very hard to be fair. So I appreciate that. And I just want to thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Lord.
Yes, thank you. First, I apologize for my camera being off. I'm overcoming pneumonia and I'm a wreck. So my camera off is to save y'all the image of what I look like right now. But I just wanted to uplift Lynn as president, or President Griesmer. Personally, as a person who came into this council, so grateful to be able to serve and talk to the people in my district and all around Amherst. I also came in not knowing a lot, and President Griesmer always will give me the time that I need to explain something to me. I never feel shamed or patronized because I might not know how local politics work as much as some people who've been in it for generations. So I support President Griesmer today and in my tenure because she's really met me human to human with compassion and a no shame that I don't know this, but a willingness to say, here's the different things and here's some other resources if you want to learn more about it. So I also thank you for your willingness to run, because I also don't see a lot of people vying for this position, because it's, beyond a full-time job. So I just want to put my 2 cents in, and thank you very much.
Would any other counselors like to make a 2-minute statement before the vote? Seeing none, please indicate your preferred candidate on your ballot, the name or present or abstain. And if you are virtual, you can send me an email with your vote. I'm just going to read these in the order that I collected them rather than a alphabetical order. Yes, I got. Waiting for one more counselor to email. Okay, I'll read these as they came in. Counselor Walker abstains. Counselor Lord, Griesemer, Counselor Ete, Griesemer, Counselor Ryan, Griesemer, Counselor Griesemer, Griesemer, Counselor Shane, Griesemer, Counselor Steinberg, Griesemer, Counselor Taub, Griesemer, Counselor Hegner, Griesemer, Counselor Devlin Gauthier, abstain. Counselor Rooney, Griesemer. Counselor Henneke, none of the candidates. And Counselor DeAngelis, Griesemer.
That concludes that election.
So that's 10 votes for Lynn Griesemer. You've elected a president.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. Stand and do this.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to faithfully and impartially perform all duties incumbent upon you as president of the town council of the town of Amherst?
I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Athena, I'm going to follow the same script. So the floor is now open for nominations for vice president of the council. Anna,
I would like to nominate Counselor Ryan.
Counselor Ryan, do you accept the nomination?
Yes,
Are there any other nominations at this time? Okay. Counselor Ryan, would you please, yes.
I'd like to nominate Kathy Shane.
Kathy, would you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Okay. We'll begin in the order in which people were nominated. Counselor Ryan, would you please take your 2 minutes?
I won't take 2 minutes, but I do accept the nomination, and Anna, thank you for that. Today actually marks the 5th year of my service on the council. And I think, as all of you know, there's a tremendous learning curve. And while I probably would never feel ready, I feel like after 5 years, this is something that I think I can do and I would be willing to do. I would promise or commit to attend every single agenda setting meeting, and I would also seek to attend every other meeting to which the president is invited, wherever that is possible. I would also commit to being available to anyone at any time to talk about what I see and what I hear. I value collegiality. I hope you all believe that. And I think you also hopefully know that I'm someone you can talk to and that I'm open to your thoughts. I know I can work well with Lynn. We have a good working relationship. I would take the job seriously and I would give it the time and attention it deserves.
Thank you. Kathy Shane, would you please take your 2 minutes?
Thank you for this opportunity to be vice president. I actually had not thought a lot about it before I came in tonight. But I did several years ago. I'm completing 6 years on the council, and I have not run for president ever because I didn't think I had enough time, and I ran for vice president once. But I do think this time around, we have a series of legislative issues beyond the town council's purview that's important for our legislators to hear about and also to start thinking of what does the council really want to see. So some legislative options. And Lynn has opened up and Anna has laid a road for those regular meetings with Mindy and Joe, and I think they're very important. I think agenda setting is important as well. And for those of you who watched me on the school building committee, I like to be in front of audiences. So to the extent I can, if it's an issue I care about, I'm more than willing to do it. So I have learned how to chair when I need to, but I also think the range of issues we deal with, there's an opportunity to split up some of the responsibilities. So I'm honored to be nominated. Thank you.
Okay. Counselor comments? Anna?
So I have had the privilege and the honor to serve as vice president for the past 3 years. And one of the things that became abundantly clear to me is for the health of this body, we need to continue to vary our leadership. We need to elevate voices into roles that have not been there before so that we do not become stuck, so that we do not become put into a way of existing and a way of functioning that is personality dependent. I nominated George because I've had the privilege of working with him on GOL for the past year and on the council, of course. But having worked with George on GOL, I have seen him show up with a very balanced approach. Despite not loving motioning to adjourn, he does show up with a positive attitude. He contributes very healthily and helpfully to conversation and shows up regardless of how much he personally cares about one issue or another. He shows up for them with the same amount of effort, that 100% effort. He's willing to shift his mind. He's not coming in set on something, and he's willing to challenge me, anybody else, when he feels that that challenge is necessary. So I believe that George will bring an organized and balanced approach. I believe that he will challenge the president as needed and as is helpful. And I think that he will be able to open doors and elevate the strengths and the voices of others. He's stepped in and helped out on GOL and on this council in a variety of ways. So we need that shift. And I'm stepping aside and nominating George to do that because I think that he's more than capable and will continue to promote the well-being of this council.
Pam?
Thank you. I nominated Kathy Shane because I have watched her now for 3 years, and I have been extremely appreciative of the thoroughness with which she does her homework and follows through. It is said that she will fight hard for actions that are important to her, but if it's outvoted or if she's outvoted, she will drop the issue and move on. It is not a lingering issue with her. That said, she is extremely impartial, brings a huge range of information and knowledge from her past life to everything that she does. And I'm not sure I haven't yet to bump into someone on this council that does the homework that Kathy Shane does. So I would strongly support her and look for a really good team with Lynn and Kathy representing oftentimes different perspectives and therefore bringing us into balance. Thank you.
Andy?
I hadn't been prepared to speak, but then now that we have two candidates, I feel compelled to. I'm going to actually start with a quick thank you to Anna. She has really served the council well as vice president, has been very active in providing leadership in many respects, including through GOL, as well as in making us think and work on the legislative issues in a variety of areas. So Anna, thank you. I think we have two very good candidates who've been nominated, and I think that both of them would serve the council well and be supportive of Lynn, who we've just elected as president. So in that respect, I think that we're very fortunate in the selection. Makes it very difficult to cast a vote when I was not prepared to have to knowing who was going to be nominated in full. I am going to vote for Councilor Ryan, but it's not a reflection on Councilor Shane. I find that having worked with George for a number of years, including his being the vice chair of the committee that I'm currently chairing, TSO, has been very supportive, has been willing to take on the areas that I felt he was better working on, and has been a very good leader when called upon within the committee. And so I have great confidence in his ability, which is not a reflection on Kathy, but it's a choice I have to make. Thank you.
Jennifer.
Thank you. Again, I hadn't expected to speak again, and I want to echo Andy in thanking Anna for her service and leadership. And she will continue to be a leader on the council. Again, my support for Kathy is not a reflection. I've enjoyed working on Councilor Ryan, who I've enjoyed working with very much on TSO. He works very hard and is very informed and always prepared. But Kathy is extremely independent. She has run for the council 3 times, and I believe has always run independently. And I think that that's important. I think having a president and vice president who are strongly supported and I think closely associated with one of the political action committees, I think it would be a better balance. And I think if we're fortunate enough to have an independent, a candidate who runs independently, who's willing to serve as vice president, I think that would be that would serve the council well. Kathy is independent. She's not political. I really respect a straight shooter. You're extremely intellectual and intellectually honest, and Kathy looks at every issue and is incredibly prepared and informed, and takes the position that she thinks is right. And I always look to Kathy. I know when I ask you for advice, it won't be biased. It won't be reflecting an agenda. It'll be what you think is the right thing to do. So that's who, again, no reflection on Councilor Ryan, but I will be casting my vote for Kathy Shane and think she will be a good balance to the current president.
Pat DeAngelis.
Thank you. 2 good candidates. What can I say? 2 really good candidates for vice president. I am, with no negative reflection on you at all, Kathy, because I have been amazingly impressed with you over the years, and particularly respectful of the work you've done on the elementary school building committee. But I really am asking you to, all of you, or as many of you as you can, is to support Councilor Ryan. He's diligent, he's collaborative, he's cooperative. And while he has strong opinions, he really is able to listen and to be affected by others' arguments. He has been committed to service his whole life. And that's an amazing thing for any of us to be able to do, to say that my job is to serve. And if you hang out with George for a little while, you go to lunch with George, or you go to listen to Tony Trischka at the Drake with George, you start to see the connections he's made across groups in the community. You see him talking to business owners. You see him talking to homeless people. You see him really meeting representatives from the library building committee or state reps with an equanimity and a simplicity that I admire. I've worked with him on GOL. He can be annoying because he's very, very precise and very clear about the kinds of changes we work on in GOL, which lead to clarity, consistency, and actionability. Vote for him.
Okay. Are there any other comments at this time? then please mark your ballots and Athena will be collecting them and she will tally the vote. And if you are on Zoom, please, if you are remote, please send it to Athena. He's stuffing the ballot box.
Counselor Lord, can you hear us?
I can.
Okay. Can you send an email? It says if that didn't
Well-
work.
Oh, I thought I sent it. Let me double check. Oh, yeah. So it says technical difficulties, but if you read further down, did you receive something that says technical difficulties?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that your vote?
In the body, yes.
Yes, that's your vote. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Counselor Walker votes for Kathy Shane. Counselor Ette votes for George Ryan. Counselor Lord abstains. Counselor Hegner votes for Shane. Counselor Shane votes for Shane. Counselor Rooney votes for Shane. Counselor Taub votes for Shane. Counselor Haneke votes for Counselor Ryan. Counselor Steinberg votes for Counselor Ryan. Counselor Devlin Gauthier votes for Ryan, and Counselor DeAngelis votes for Ryan. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5. Lynn, we have a tie.
You're missing one vote.
Lynn, Paula, George voted for himself. That's 6. It's 6 and 5. 10, 11.
She voted for Kathy.
Counselor Walker voted for Kathy. It's 6 and 5 with 1 abstention, Lynn. That's a failing vote.
6 and 5.
Yeah, because Lynn didn't vote. It's 6 to 5 with 1 abstention. That's a failing vote.
Okay.
So would you like to cast a vote? Or we can do another round of voting.
There are 13 of us. As I have done in the past, I have withheld voting because I would be fine with either one of you. Right. So it's a failed vote. We need 7, right?
You need 7 to elect a vice
Okay.
president. So do you want to do another round? You're going to abstain?
Sure.
Okay.
We're voting a second time, so please fill in your ballots.
Point of order?
Yes.
Oh.
I don't believe that's how the rules work. I think you have to go through the nomination cycle again under the rules.
Thank you. Okay, so the floor is now open for nominations. Do people need to be re-nominated?
Yeah, we start over.
Okay,
We start the process over.
Pam Rooney.
I would like to nominate Kathy Shane.
Okay, and Kathy, do you accept? And
Yes.
Anna.
I'd like to nominate George Ryan.
And George, do you accept?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do we do speeches again? Okay, all right. Kathy, this time you will go first. They have to speak again.
They can choose not to.
They can choose not to.
I think I said everything that needs to be said.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. George, do you wish to say anything else?
No, I think what I said stands. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other counselors are there any counselors who would like to speak at this time? Seeing none, then we're going to go ahead with our vote. If you're a remote, please make sure you send an email.
Counselor Ryan voted for George Ryan. Counselor Ette voted for George Ryan. Counselor Lord abstained. Counselor Walker voted for Kathy Shane. Counselor Taub voted for Kathy Shane. Counselor DeAngelis voted for George Ryan. Counselor Haneke voted for George Ryan. Counselor Steinberg voted for George Ryan. Counselor Griesemer voted for Ryan. Counselor Shane voted for Counselor Shane. Counselor Hegner voted for Counselor Shane. Counselor Hegner voted for Counselor Shane. Counselor Rooney voted for Counselor Shane. And Counselor Devlin Gauthier voted for George Ryan. 7. George, you have 7 votes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
George,
want-
George, would you please raise your right hand?
Yes, thank you.
Do you swear or affirm to faithfully and impartially perform all duties incumbent upon you as Vice President of the Town Council for the Town of Amherst?
I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you all.
I want to thank both candidates for their willingness to put each of their names forward, and just, this is never an easy decision. But I can remember on our very first time we ever voted, we were here for like a half an hour trying to break the tie. I also want to take an opportunity to thank Anna. What I have appreciated most about Anna is her willingness to challenge me. And she does it gracefully and she does it firmly. And I hope that even though you are no longer sitting in the seat of vice president, you'll continue to do that. And I trust you will.
That won't be a problem.
In addition to that, later on, you're going to hear that Anna is going to spend a little more time working with us on formulating the retreat around the town manager's goals. Kathy, I want to also thank you. You are a trusted and dear colleague, and the work that you've done on the school, on the elementary school, is coming home in a beautiful way that is unbelievable. Thank you so much. We are going to pause this meeting. We are going to go into the public forum. Yes?
Yes, recess.
Okay. So this is a special town council and finance committee meeting. It's a public forum on appropriations outside the annual budget. It is, and we will talk about what those items are in a moment. So I'm calling the meeting to order on January 13th. I've already gone through all of the things that I've said before, so in the interest of time, the meeting is called to order at 7:10. I do not see any change in counselors.
Pardon me, but could Bob please call the Finance Committee meeting to order? One of the non-voting members is present.
Yes, that's the next thing I'm going to go to. So Bob Hagner, as Chair of the Finance Committee, please call the remaining members of the Finance Committee.
Yeah, the
Please
finance,
call it to order. Thank you.
yes, the finance committee is called to order. Tom, can you hear us? I don't know if you're still there or not. Tom Porter is on the committee. He's signed in earlier. I think he's probably moved away. I'll just call him absent for now, but if he can show up, we'll call him present.
Okay, thank you. So this is a public forum on the supplemental appropriations. And according to Charter Section 5.6, the public forum is called to provide the public with the opportunity to speak about any of the following council orders. In preparation for this, I have asked Athena to prepare a slide which lists all of the orders, as well as by title and by number, as well as the funding source and the amount. So let's just go through those very briefly. The first one is Financial Order FY 2548B. It is regarding sewer enterprise funds, and it's for $250,000. The second is an order also for solid waste enterprise funds, and it's $20,000. The third is again sewer enterprise funds for $575,000. And finally, this group is an order for a sidewalk plow. The original Finance Committee order was for $200,000, and the Finance Committee has recommended $140,000. And then finally, there is a financial order that is regarding the track and field for the Amherst Pelham Regional High School that comes from CPA funds, and that is $800,000. There are two people here present with us tonight that, if need be, they will answer questions as raised during the public forum. And we want to thank both Bob Parent, who has worked closely on a number of the issues, as well as Guilford Mooring, who has obviously represents 4 of these orders, and also then Dave Zomack, who has been working diligently with all of our towns, all 4 of the towns, to get the track and field funded. Are there any other particular comments that either David or Guilford feel that at this point they need to make?
No.
Okay. David?
Not unless necessary. Thank you.
Okay. Then the floor is open for public comment. Anyone wishing to make public comment who is in the town room, please make sure you have signed up with Athena. If you are in the audience and you would like to make public comment, please raise your hand at this time. Athena, has anyone
Yes.
asked to make, okay.
Vince O'Connor? Yep, come on up, please. Please remember to state your name and where you live before you begin your comment. Point of order, did you say 2 minutes or 3 minutes?
3.
Thank you.
So Vincent O'Connor, 175 Summer Street, Apartment 12. The first step in solving the problem is to clearly state the problem. For the past 3 years, the manager's budgets delivered on May 1st or thereabouts 5/6 of the way into that fiscal year, have stated that no surplus was anticipated. These statements by the manager were clearly false. Any person familiar with Massachusetts municipal financial fiscal management should know at the 5/6 points in any fiscal year, a municipality's fiscal manager has to know whether their community is going to run a surplus or a deficit and its relative size. The effect of these surpluses, minus whatever income was derived from restricted funds, investments, was to significantly overtax Amherst property taxpayers, not just for one odd year, but for 3 consecutive years. Because taxing to the legal limit for money not needed for a given year's operating and capital budget is essentially transferring money from property taxpayers' bank accounts to our municipal bank account without the legal justification of voter-approved debt or a debt exclusion or a Proposition 2.5 override. To compound these injuries, the manager then used the false statements in his budget to justify his cut to the last 2 regional school budgets and to the FY24 elementary school budget. And now we have a situation where the surplus for this past fiscal year is essentially proposed to be restricted to capital items, this expenditure for capital items, just blatantly ignoring the fact that this surplus exists because these 2 school budgets were cut using the justification of these false statements. And so I really object to the statement that we can only use this surplus for capital thing. What this surplus should be used is to make the schools whole for the cuts that were made in the past couple of years that were clearly not justified by the facts of the budget that were misstated by the manager in his budgets to the public and to the council.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any comments additional, Athena?
I don't believe that you wanted to speak to this item, did you? No. Nope, that's it.
Okay. And there are no comments on Zoom. We began this meeting at what time?
7:11.
7:14. Okay. So we should be, we've fine. Thank you for keeping the clock. That concludes public comment. I'm going to go back to Bob Hegner and ask Bob, if you would check with the Finance Committee to see if there's any change in your recommendations.
Should point out that we all voted, those who were present voted in favor of, to recommend all of these with the provision that the sidewalk plow amount was reduced to 140,000, as you say there. Is there anyone on the committee who wishes to change a vote?
Kathy, you have your hand up? Kathy? Oh, I thought I saw your hand. I'm sorry.
You did see my hand, but it was a comment,
Okay.
not response to Bob.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, here's Tom.
Hey, Tom, I see you're present now. Can you please just say present, unmute and say present so we can make sure that you can hear us and we can hear you?
I'm present.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
all right, Lynn, no one has changed their vote.
Okay. So then, before I adjourn the public forum, Bob, would you please adjourn the Finance Committee?
Is there a motion to adjourn? the
I move
Finance
to
Committee?
adjourn the special meeting of the Finance Committee.
I'll second.
All right, I vote aye. Kathy,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Councilor Haneke,
Yes.
Jennifer? No, you're not. Tom? Yes,
What?
and Alicia, sorry.
I'm giving you a
Councilor
non-voting
Walker.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So I move to adjourn the public forum. Is there a second?
Second, Rooney.
Thank you. We're going to move immediately to a vote. We'll begin with Pat DeAngelis,
Aye.
Anna Devlin Gothier,
Aye.
Counselor Ette,
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer is an aye, Counselor Haneke,
Aye.
Bob Hegner,
Aye.
Counselor Lord,
Aye.
Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Andy Steinberg,
Yes.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
The public forum is adjourned and we're going to go back immediately to the council meeting.
Thank you for joining us, Tom. If you'd like to stay, I'll move you into the attendees.
Thank you.
Okay. Very briefly, there is, our next meeting at the town council is at 6:30 on January 27th. The CRC committee is continuing their hearing regarding University Drive overlay zoning on January 14th at 6:30. The other committees have not been scheduled, and later on in the evening, we'll discuss how committee assignments will happen. We're going to move now to general public comment. Anyone wishing to speak who is in the town room, please make sure you've signed up with Athena. Anybody who is in the on Zoom, please raise your hand at this time if you would like to speak to public comment. Athena, how many people?
I have 3 signed up.
Okay. Public comments are a matter within the jurisdiction of the town council. Residents are welcome to express their views for up to 3 minutes. The council will not engage in a dialogue or comment on matters raised during general public comment. Public comments are not reflective of the opinions of the council. Please note the clock and consistent with the 3 minutes. The First Amendment broadly protects individual rights to address the government, to speak, and to express themselves, including their right to say hateful and offensive things. I am generally unable to shut those commenters down under the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution unless their level of speech falls within an exception articulated by the courts, such as fighting words, true threats to a particular individual, harassment of a particular individual, or incitement of imminent lawless activity. If a question exists as to whether a particular speaker is engaging in unprotected speech, I must defer to the principles of the freedom of speech. We will recognize speakers in the order in which they have signed up, and we will begin in this case with Zoom. Martha Hanner, please enter the room, state your name and where you live.
Martha Hanner, District 5, speaking as an individual. Welcome to the new year. I hope all of you are doing well and ready for the new challenges. It has been a full year since the solar bylaw was submitted to you for approval. The legislature has now passed a new climate bill that includes solar array siting and permitting. The law allows local communities to regulate, quote, small clean energy generation facilities with a DC nameplate capacity less than 25 megawatts, where 1 megawatt rated nameplate capacity corresponds to 4 or 5 acres of a solar array. So we do really need a local bylaw. A new state organization will eventually formulate guidelines and regulations to follow, but probably not before the end of 2026. It is important for us to have our bylaw in place now. A good bylaw will give us leverage in negotiating these guidelines. One of the requirements in Section 23 is that a municipality must review and make a decision within 12 months, and it must be a consolidated review. Thus, it is absolutely urgent that we prepare a clear and complete bylaw that will aid the ZBA to facilitate the review process. The new climate law is not 100% satisfactory. Our Senator Comerford has been actively involved, and she will continue to persist in the new legislative session to get changes beneficial to our Western Mass communities. as well as interacting with the new state organizations setting guidelines. It will be to our real advantage to have our bylaw completed so that she can use it to help negotiate for our communities. How should the council review a bylaw that requires some technical knowledge? I would urge the council to set up a short-term ad hoc council committee now to look at this solar bylaw with a fresh review in light of of the state new law. And you need to understand the state requirements, call on experts if necessary, and conduct an informed review, not just wordsmithing. This bylaw is not a simple zoning amendment. The council owes it to our community to get the job done right and to get it done soon. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, Martha. We'll go to the town room.
Tricia Montgomery. Thank you, Mr. Vandal.
Well, folks, I am Trish Montgomery. I've lived in the town for 43 years. I live on Wesley Street. I'm also a business owner in town. I have my own law practice that primarily focuses on elder law and estate planning. I'm here today, however, as a member of the Council on Aging. And it's my understanding that the Council on Aging is due to have some construction, or if you will, upgrades in the next coming year or so. And I also know that budgets are very tight and that there are other entities having construction. And I implore you to keep on the list a number of the accessibility issues. And due to time, I'm going to speak to one this evening. And the one I'm going to speak to is the community bathroom. Now, I know for some, if not all of you, that sounds confusing. Community bathroom, what does that mean? It means that it's a single bathroom area that one or more people can use at one time. And by more people, I mean there are folks with disabilities that need the assistance of a caregiver when they use the facility. And if the caregiver or the person needing assistance are not of the same gender, it's a problem when you have to use the facility. So a community bathroom is essential. Now, disabled people aren't the only folks that need a communal bathroom. If you had a mother or a father with a different gendered child, that too is an issue beyond the age of 3 or 4. And a communal bathroom, i.e. a bathroom in which the mother or father or grandparent, pick whoever's caring for the children or child, it would be almost necessary for them to have a bathroom where they could bring one or more child, that either they go to the bathroom or multiple children need the facilities. So it's not just a disabled person's issue. Most places now are leaning toward communal only bathrooms for the reasons I just mentioned. Now, there are also folks of different shapes and different sizes that find it easier to use a communal bathroom than a little stall or even the handicap stall. I can't tell you the number of times I waited out the quote handicap stall while everybody else uses it because there's more space, it's more comfortable, it's more convenient. So I ask you not to scratch that from the proposed renovations to the Bank Center. I also implore you to also include additional accessibility issues in the plans if there's money. Right now, I know that the communal bathroom is definite, but that's not the only issue that appeared. There are other things on the list that for folks with disabilities or movement impairments or aren't the typical male and typical female need. Now, I'd like to take a moment to, with respect to the communal bathroom or any bathroom, I often can get in, we can push the door open.
So we need you to wrap up, please.
Just, if there's not enough space for the wheelchair to get to the left from the door, to pull the door open, I'm stuck there until somebody comes to use the bathroom. Just saying.
We want to thank you for taking the time to come and share with us the challenges that you face.
My pleasure. But again, remember, it's not only disabled people that need these things.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
No, we don't comment.
Okay.
Great. We will go to Maria Kapicki. Please enter the room, state your name and where you live.
Thank you, Maria Kapicki, South Amherst. Before you took a vote over a year ago to authorize the town to be responsible for more than $46 million of borrowing for the library building project, you, including the Finance Committee, held multiple meetings to discuss the fiscal implications of that decision. Unfortunately, several town and library leaders kept information from you before that vote about violations of historic preservation standards and the subsequent rejection of $2 million of historic tax credits, and also about the need for a rigorous and time-consuming Section 106 process required for another $2 million in federal funding. You were still being kept in the dark about all this 6 months ago when you were only one vote shy of stopping this project. We are now 2 extensions later from the MBLC, and the project remains in disarray. The Section 106 process still has a long ways to go. More bidding will be required. The contingency is already being consumed before the project can even start, and the deadline for the general contractor bids is upon you. Meanwhile, fundraising remains many millions of dollars short, far more than the endowment of the library in its entirety. You have an obligation as the keeper of the purse to take action now. You have to acknowledge that there is a possibility, really a probability, that the library will not be able to make up the difference in funding. And you have to understand what the consequences will be in that case. Now, I know that you're going to hear about, oh, the town is only on the hook for $15.8 million. Well, let's think about that. The difference between secured funding right now and the alleged 46 million, which is probably going to go up, is 11.5 million. So you can just add that on to the 15.8 million. We're talking about the town being responsible for 27 million. Even if the library comes up with the pledges that they are supposed to have, and with $2 million from Section 106, you're still talking well over $20 million. You cannot get blood from a stone. If the library doesn't have the money, they can't give the town the money. You need to do a thorough analysis of the fiscal situation, and failing to do your job will not absolve you of responsibility for the consequences of that inaction. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We'll go back to the room.
Dennis Vandal.
Hello there. Hi. Good evening. I'm Dennis Vandal. I'm a property owner and resident of Amherst at 173 Columbia Drive. I'm also the vice chairman of the town's Council on Aging, and I'm also the president of the Friends of the Amherst Senior Center. I hope you saw a recent story in the Amherst Current website entitled A Tale of Two Senior Centers, written by Nick Grabbe. I was asked for comment for that story, and I was also asked to provide a few photos. So I made a special trip with my camera to look around and take a few pictures. And what I found was honestly disappointing and disturbing. It is a facility that has not kept up with the times or the community's needs at all. I was surprised to see deteriorating wallboard absorbing moisture from a malfunctioning industrial dishwasher. I saw the trap on a sink drain that had obviously been leaking for months, if not years. I saw $15,000 worth of exercise equipment gathering dust for no reason that I can see. Amherst, for a long time, has enjoyed a reputation as a jewel in the Happy Valley. It prides itself for its progressive, inclusive politics, and it's transparent to the max form of government. But when it comes to the senior center, Amherst has become a disappointment. As a member of the Council on Aging, I now often hear negative comments about the senior center's lack of free parking, lack of space for events and programs, lack of exercise facilities, and its lack of staffing to meet the needs of Amherst's growing elder population. There is no question in my mind that the needs of Amherst's senior population has taken a back seat to so many other competing interests. I place the blame for this squarely on your shoulders as members of the town council. I hope the renovations of the Bank Center will finally put the entire senior center on a single floor, the same floor where it's located right now. And I also hope that we will finally see a kitchen facility eventually that will be clean and safe to use. I hope to see an exercise room that will be open and available for use. We can't afford to lose a single penny of the ARPA funds designated for the renovation of the Bank Center. We can't afford it, especially when we consider how many years the needs of Amherst seniors have been neglected because of budget cuts in past years, along with very negligible increases in more recent years. That concludes my remarks. Thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you for joining us, Dennis. Is there one more person?
Vince O'Connor.
Okay.
Again, Vince O'Connor, 175 Summer Street, apartment 12. And the members of the council have a printed statement entitled Revising Amherst Charter to Democratize Library and School Funding. And let's read from the opening paragraphs. The following proposed additions to the Amherst Home Rule Charter conform to the restrictions in Section 4, parentheses 2 of Amendment 89 to the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which reads, any change in a charter relating in any way to the composition, mode of election or appointment, or terms of office of the legislative body, the mayor or city manager, or the board of selectmen or town manager shall be made only by the in quotes, charter commission by petition procedure of charter revisions set forth in Section 3. I read this because with regard to charter revisions, exaggerated statements are made about what can be done and what will require a petition and a charter commission by petition. Those requirements are very limited, as you can see in Section 2. The reason I propose these is because, one, I've watched primarily the school committee members who spent a year on their budget reduced to the status of ordinary citizens by the manner in which they have to approach the finance committee and the council. They are simply other citizens, regardless of the fact that they've been elected, and they get 2 or 3 minutes to speak to their budget and have to sit silently while people, quite frankly, who have not spent the entire year on the school budget, speak about their budget. This is not tolerable. My view is that both the library trustees and the school committee should sit with the council to vote on the respective budgets of their organizations. And that with respect to any finance committee consideration of either the library or school budgets, that at least 2 members of those organizations should sit with the finance committee as full voting members, and that there be an individual selected by the various school committees or the library trustees to accompany them as a non-voting member. The only way we are going to bring the school budget to the realistic consideration of the council, not just what the manager says and the amount he says, but the actual involvement is not to require that the councilors all attend the school committee hearings. That's not realistic. I don't think that would happen. You have many other things to do and many other meetings to attend.
We need you to
The
wrap
way
up.
to do that is to bring those elected individuals into the process of voting, as happens in 300 other Massachusetts communities that have town meetings, without any detriment to the elected leadership otherwise.
Thank you for joining us. That concludes public comment. We are going to move to the consent agenda. The following items were selected because they were, I'm going to ask the clerk of the town council to please put the consent agenda up on the board so that people can understand where we are. The following items were selected because they were considered to be routine and it was reasonable to expect they would pass with no controversy. To remove an item from the consent agenda for discussion later in the meeting, ask that it be removed. Although I do want to point out, we have an opportunity to discuss each of these items regardless of whether we vote them now or not. The request to remove an item from the consent agenda does not require a second. Okay. To move the following items in the printed motions they're under and approve those items as a single unit. 6A, adoption of 2025 Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day proclamation. 8B, referral of appropriation and transfer order FY 25-05E, and order appropriating funds for a portion of the town of Amherst capital program roads and sidewalk repairs to the Finance Committee. 8C, approval of appropriation and transfer order FY 25-04B, and order appropriating a supplemental increase to the town of Amherst Sewer Enterprise Fund operating budget for FY 2025. 8D, approval appropriation transfer order FY 25-04C, and order appropriating a supplemental increase to the town of Amherst Solid Waste Enterprise Fund for FY 25. 8A, approval of appropriation and transfer order FY 25-05B, and order appropriating funds for the town of Amherst Sewer Fund Capital Program, sewer collection system, wastewater treatment, pH and chlorine studies, and additional costs associated with the gravity belt thickener project. 8F, council appropriation and transfer FY 25-05C, and order appropriating funds for a portion of the town of Amherst capital program sidewalk equipment. 8G, Community Preservation Act appropriating and borrowing authorization for order FY 25-08A, and order appropriating and authorizing debt for construction of the reoriented track and field facility known as option 3C at the Amherst Pelham Regional High School. And 11A, approval of minutes December 2nd, 2024 regular meeting. Kathy?
I have a question and a comment. One is on 8F, the sidewalk equipment. The Finance Committee had recommended 140. Is that the amount that's in the order? Because it was not the amount that was shown on the screen earlier.
Athena?
The Finance Committee recommended a reduction in that amount, and so in the motion on the motion sheet, there is an amendment included in the motion to adopt the financial order. I couldn't change the order based on Finance Committee's recommendation, but it is included in the motion as an amendment.
Okay, so it's for 140.
It's
rather
for
than-
140.
right.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
I have a comment on HG that I don't think requires it to be removed, but I just would like the public to know that 800,000 for track and field is part of another 3.7 million. So we're talking about a project that's at about 4.5 million, including fees and design fees. So this is not all of it. And so I just want, that's in the Finance Committee report, but I want people to understand this is a piece of it and other towns are also contributing.
Yes. And we'll have an opportunity to hear more about that when we get to that item, even if we vote this. Okay? George? I'm sorry,
So-
Counselor Ryan.
So you may have answered my question. I do have some questions about 8F. And as long as we're going to have a discussion and I can raise those questions, then I don't have anything to add. Is that true? We'll have a chance.
So you're
to-
not asking for it to be removed?
Well, as long as I understand that we'll have a chance to talk about it. I don't want it approved without some sort of discussion.
Okay. I think we should remove it.
Thank you.
So I am
that's
going
what
to remove 8F.
Thank you. 8F, thank you.
I think that's wise. Okay, so all of them stay except for 8F. Is there any further question or comment or request to remove? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote.
Was there a
I think we
second?
need a motion.
I'm sorry,
Did you make a motion?
I did make the motion.
Okay, I'll
Is there a
second.
second? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, motion's been made and seconded. We've removed one item. We'll begin with Anna Devlin Gothier.
Aye.
Counselor Ette,
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer's an aye. Counselor Haneke,
Aye.
Bob Hegner,
Aye.
Counselor Lord,
Aye.
Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes,
Andy Steinberg,
Aye.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis.
Aye.
It's unanimous. So with that, we're going to move on to the reading of the proclamation. We're not going to read the whole proclamation, but I have asked Anna to read the last two paragraphs
Thank you.
as one of the sponsors.
Now, therefore, we, the Amherst Town Council, do hereby proclaim January 20th, 2025 as a day to recognize and remember the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the dreams and ideals for which he stood. Be it further proclaimed, we, the Amherst Town Council, encourage Amherst residents to observe this holiday not only by reflecting on Dr. King's legacy, but also by actively serving others in the pursuit of community and justice. Let the town of Amherst reflect upon its commitment that all people are able to live his dream.
Okay, thank you. And please note that there are various activities going on, including the food drive and the addressing of cards, et cetera. Okay. So we're going to move on to, there are no discussion items. We're going to move on to action item 8B. And I'm looking now to see if there's any hands of people who would like any further discussion, even though we have already voted on this on consent. Whoops, I didn't mean to raise my hand. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go on to the next one. This is Council Order FY 2504B. Are there any further discussion required on that one? I'm sorry. I'm just asking for each of them if there's any further discussion.
I guess I don't know why when we approved the financial
Yeah.
orders, so.
I did promise that if anybody had any questions, but we can skip over D and E and move on to F. And F was removed from the agenda. I mean, from the consent agenda. So, the following motion therefore has to be made. Having held a public forum on January 13th, 2025, and in receipt of a report from the Finance Committee on December 12th, 2024, to approve appropriation and transfer order FY 25-05C, an order appropriating funds for a portion of the Town of Amherst Capital Program sidewalk equipment as shown on page 16 of the motion sheet as amended by reducing the appropriation amount to $140,000. Is there a second?
Second, Rooney.
Are there any further questions? George?
Yeah, this one sort of puzzled me, and I guess maybe I just need just a more clarification from the Finance Committee. There's a machine that apparently does multiple things that would cost a bit more. And then there's a machine that just does snow removal. And I think this point was made at the last discussion, that I'm sure tomorrow there'll be a snowstorm, but this is, I'm trying to understand why we're not getting a machine that can do multiple tasks rather than getting a machine that can only do one thing, and something that perhaps over the next few years is going to be less and less in demand. Is it a case of being penny wise and pound foolish? So I read the Finance Committee report, and I didn't get a sense of why this is the better strategy, other than it's cheaper. So if somebody could just help me understand why not only is this cheaper, but it actually makes sense, even though the machine can only do one thing.
So before I go on to DPW Superintendent Maureen, I'm going to ask the Finance Committee Chair if you have any further comments on this item.
Well, I'll let Guilford explain things, but the way my understanding was that both pieces of equipment were appropriate for doing clearing the sidewalks. The $200,000 machine was more flexible in that it had additional uses outside of the season, the snowfall season. However, as I understood it, the $140,000 equipment was sitting on a sitting at the dealership and could be acquired immediately. So that was part of our also rationale for why we wanted to do that. But Guilford, if you wanted to add anything to that.
Please go ahead, Guilford.
Yes, first I apologize. I seem to have confused people in the two machines. The $200,000 machine only does one thing. That machine is made for plowing sidewalks. It's a track machine. It's basically a very small snow groomer. But it is the more expensive machine only does one thing. The $140,000 machine can do multiple things. It's basically a mini loader. So it has a loader bucket, and then it can have a snow plow, and then it can have a snow blower. So that is the more versatile machine. The drawback to that machine is there are storms where it struggles, whereas the $200,000 machine is just a beast, and it'll plow to just about any snowstorm you have. So those are the two difference. We are actually buying a multi-use machine that will be able to do most of our work, especially since we're having such a great snow season this year. It should be fine. I hope that clarifies it. And I apologize if I confused the two machines earlier.
George, you have your hand up?
That clarifies it absolutely. And Guilford, your job is to make sure that we don't have any more serious snowstorms for at least next 10 years. Okay.
Are there any further comments or questions? So I've made the motion, and we need a second.
I second, Ryan.
You second it. Okay, thank you. We're going to move then to a vote. Counselor Ette,
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer's an aye. Counselor Haneke,
Aye.
Bob Hagner,
Aye.
Counselor Lord,
Aye.
Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Andy Steinberg,
Aye.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis,
Aye.
Anna Devlin Gothier.
Aye.
It's unanimous. We did suggest that when we got to the track and field, there might be a little bit more, although we did vote this on consent. David, are there any additional information you'd like to provide us at this time?
Thanks, Lynn. I think the only information that may not be completely up to date is we have been successful at securing funding from 2 of the Hilltown communities in the region. I think most people realize we did get funding, $110,000 in funding from Pelham, and then Shutesbury voted $136,000 toward the project. And then we are awaiting more action by the CPA committee in the town of Leverett, and we hope that they will recommend the project to town meeting in the spring of this year.
Thank you. Bob, is there any more finance committee?
Yeah, I just wanted to add my appreciation for Dave and his group that they really worked hard on this and came up with a plan that is flexible. There are parts of this that if the budget does not allow, we can postpone to a later time. They've already figured out what can happen, what we can do now that there's some uncertainty about the final cost of all this. And I was someone who was actually skeptical of this project when it was first proposed. And I think I certainly came around to realizing that this was the right thing to do. And we have a really good project. We have flexibility that if we run short of cash, we can postpone certain things. And we can always add to it. This isn't going to be the be all and do all. The only concern I have is maintenance of the facility, and we've discussed this with David and the crew. The field itself will be turf and will be a multi-purpose field, and in inclement weather that can be very vulnerable. So we're going to have someone responsible for maintenance of this field, and someone who has the authority to say, hey, nobody can use this field for a week. But that aside, that really has nothing to do with the project per se. It has to do with the fact that it's a turf field. So just everyone needs to understand that this field may not be available from time to time because of inclement weather, but it's basically, I think, the best thing we can do. And it's got the support of most, I think 3 of the 4 towns already have given it support. All the towns have given some support. But we're just waiting the final approval from one of the 4 towns.
Thank you. Counselor Ryan?
I just want to echo Bob's point that this is definitely the right thing to do. It's been long overdue. It will serve a very important community that often seems to be left out in the cold. And it encourages me that sometimes, though it takes a long time, at times we eventually do the right thing. I think Bob makes a good point about maintenance. That's something we need to be attentive to, but this makes me feel good. I'm glad it's happening.
Thank you. Kathy?
Picking up on the maintenance theme, I agree with the previous comments. It's nice to see this project moving. I've heard from multiple sources, including when we were discussing the Fort River fields, that there's not a clear designation and delineation of who's responsible for what. And we've got the rec department, DPW, and the schools, sometimes over swaths of narrow land that are abutting each other. And I know Paul at one point said the new superintendent is trying to get some real agreements, like let's have who's responsible. One of the things we heard from the new group that came in to start to give us estimates is there are drainage systems next to the track when they dug a little, but no one had bothered to clean them out. So they weren't draining anything. We don't want that to happen again. You know, that the track was getting water on it where it didn't need to. We thought there was no drainage, and they said there actually was drainage. They were just clogged. So it's going to have to be high on the radar screen, not low on who's responsible for what. The last thing, and I've mentioned this a couple of times in discussions with UMass, they have artificial turf fields that are practice fields that aren't used very often. Maybe we could get permission to be using those in heavy rainfall just for practice if we need to. Amherst College has them also, but UMass has a whole bunch tucked away way over by the track. And when you walk by them, they're often not used. So just thinking of in-kind service to the town. There are fields in town. But this doesn't need to be the only one.
Thank you. Andy?
Yes, I think this is the right thing to do. I'm pleased that we are where we are with the process now. I wanted to just take a few seconds to thank the Community Preservation Act Committee because they worked really hard on this, and without their creativity in finding a way to work this within the budget and projecting into the future, because it requires multiple years for payment for the funding. It was really a good piece of work, and so I want to thank the committee.
Thank you so much.
Lynn, could I just add one other comment?
Please.
First of all, thank you all for your support and certainly to the various committees across the multiple towns that have supported this project. We are talking regarding the maintenance issue. We are talking to the region and the superintendent and DPW about what are the plans? What is the plan for maintaining the track, the field in the middle of the track, and then the field that will be created to the west of that? So that is very much on our radar screen. We're also talking about swing space with the region and with the town. Our goal is to have this facility under construction in June, right after school is concluded. We're talking with the AD about what will need to be adjusted in terms of schedules and usage in the fall, because we will still be under construction in the fall of 25. So thank you all. I also wanted to just say, I'm often the one at meetings out front on some of these projects, but really I just wanted to give a lot of credit to Bob Parent. He's on this call. Without the guidance and work that Bob has done with our consultant SLR, we wouldn't be where we are. So Bob deserves a tremendous amount of credit. He works closely with the engineering firm, the landscape architects, with everybody on every detail of the project, as well as the funding package that we've put together. And he'll be right there with us as we bid this and as it's constructed. So really, so much of the credit really belongs to Bob and the SLR team. So just wanted to thank you.
I think we want to say thanks to both of you and also to the CPA committee and to our other communities that are stepping forward on this project. Are there any other comments? With that, I would like to suggest we take a 10-minute break. We'll reconvene at 8:15. Please turn your video off and your sound. And when you come back, turn your video back on. Thank you. We need to reconvene, folks. As you return, please turn your picture back on. As you return, please turn your video on so I know you're back. Pat, I know you're back. Pam, I know you're back. George? Counselor Lord? Counselor Ette?
Present.
Hi. Counselor Lord, are you back?
Yes, I am back.
Thank you so much. Hang in there. Okay. Our next item on the agenda is a request for an easement by Eversource for around the Fort River site. And I'm going to make the motion and then seek a second, but then we're going to have a brief discussion or a brief presentation, if you will, about what this is all about, okay? To approve an order authorizing the conveyance of a permanent utility easement on town property as shown on page 18 to 19 of the motion sheets. Is there a second?
Shane seconds.
Thank you. Paul, I'm turning to you and then you can decide who else to bring in. Okay.
Thank you, Lynn. Yeah, so I'm going to turn it over to Bob Parent, our capital projects manager, who's been working through the elementary school project. Just for reference, we had our kickoff meeting early last week, and this is a request for the council that we've had queued up based on waiting for us to sign the contract. So Bob, do you want to talk about what the request is? It's a pretty straightforward request, but it deserves an explanation.
Certainly. Thank you, Paul. As Paul indicated, it's a very straightforward request. Anytime the utility company like Eversource installs an underground service line to service facility like the Fort River School, they request an easement so that they can not only install the underground service line, but maintain the service line in the future. And they also seek some protections that the owner of the property doesn't build something over the top of the easement or doesn't do anything that in any way interferes with that underground utility line. So that's really what this is all about, is creating an area within the property that is there for the purpose of the underground utility line, but also is available to the town for other utilities. For instance, part of the underground water and sewer lines are going to be installed within that same location as well. So it doesn't prohibit the town from using it, but it just prohibits the town from using it in a manner that might in any way impact the electrical line that's going into the school. And it's feeding actually two separate transformers. One transformer that will be installed near the existing maintenance building that'll serve the canopy mounted PV facility, and then a second transformer adjacent to the building that'll be serving the building and the PV system on the building itself. So as Paul indicated, pretty straightforward, but something that's necessary and something we're really trying to move forward as fast as we can, because staying at the front of the Eversource queue is very important these days. There is a worldwide shortage of electrical transformers of the size that are needed for this project, and we don't want to give Eversource any reason to let this project slip down in the queue and not be as high as we possibly can to get what's needed to put the project in service.
Thank you. Are there questions from the council? Yes, Councilor Haneke.
Just a couple. Thank you for pointing out I had noticed it too, the fact that we can't build on the easement. Is a driveway okay? Because that's kind of building on if we're paving over it. So just making sure that it's not going to impact any of the actual plans of the that are, the building plans that we've already sent out to build and signed a contract of? And number two, is this an exclusive easement? I noticed it includes both Eversource / NSTAR and NSTAR DVA Eversource, but it also includes Verizon New England, which kind of surprised me that it included both. But is it exclusive, or if some other utility company needs to get in there to provide lines through that area, since it is a pretty wide easement location, would we be able to grant a non-exclusive easement to some other entity, utility entity too?
So relative to your first question, absolutely constructing the driveway on top of the utility easement is appropriate and in fact is of benefit both to the town and to the utility owner as well, because it allows them to more readily access the utility easement or the utility if it's needed to be maintained in the future. It's just we can't build any structures on top of it that would prevent them from physically accessing the utility. On the second question, at the moment, we have rights to install utilities. This easement doesn't provide any rights for any unnamed parties other than the town and those parties named in the easement. If there was a plan for something else in the future, I assume we could discuss it with Eversource, and providing it didn't impact the Eversource line, I wouldn't expect they would have a concern. But they would have to consider it and understand it before they'd be willing to work with us on that.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay. Kathy?
I am totally for the project, and I have a comment that's sort of a question, Bob. It seems to me we could have brought this before the council earlier. Was there some reason we delayed it? Because I agree, we need to have that. And it looks to me like it's completely in line with the design plans we had. The design team had already planned that there would be these lines. So now it's just the Eversource side. So that's a question statement. So it's just, did we have to wait till we signed the contract? Could we have done it earlier? But can we get it done? And Eversource knows right now, because we always needed these transformers. Thanks.
Certainly in hindsight, we might have been able to move it forward a month or two earlier. We have been working with Eversource for months now, working with their attorneys in terms of the language of the easement, working with their technical staff in terms of the layout of the easement and how much space is necessary. And that process did take quite some time. It also took some time. The town had to retain a surveyor to create the plan that you see here. That took some time as well, but we probably could have got a month or two head start on this. I would agree.
Thank you. Pam?
Thanks. I'm hoping that this precludes the need for overhead power lines, something that we typically like to reduce as much as possible. And so the question is, will we still see overhead power lines on this site? Secondly, is the transformers then belong to the town, or is this Eversource property once it's put in? Do they maintain it, or do we?
The second part, the transformers are owned and maintained by Eversource for the benefit of the town, which is actually a good thing. The town really doesn't want to own the transformer. We're not in the transformer business. We want utility to purchase it for our benefit, maintain it for our benefit, so it's available and useful. I lost the first part of your question now.
Just do we get to avoid overhead power lines, power
Yes, we
poles
do.
and lines?
Yes, we do. All the utilities on the project are underground utilities, starting with this electrical service. So yes, there won't be.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Before we take a vote, Bob, again, we want to thank you for your diligent attention to these kinds of details. I know that the committee appreciates you as well. So thank you. Andy?
Yeah, I guess I did have one additional question. I don't know where the other end of the line is, and I was wondering if they're also going to have to come back to the council to ask for any easement that involves the West Common.
Bob?
I don't believe they anticipate this at this point. I believe directly opposite this is the old Southeast Street or Old East Street. And all the work from this point to the west would be within the town right of way.
All right. Any further questions? Seeing none, the motion's been made and seconded. We'll begin the vote. We begin with myself, Lynn Griesmer, as an aye. Counselor Haneke?
Aye.
Bob Hegner?
Aye.
Counselor Lord?
Come back.
I'm going to come back for her. Pam Rooney?
Yes.
Counselor Ryan?
Aye.
Kathy Shane?
Yes.
Andy Steinberg?
Aye.
Jennifer Taub?
Yes.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Damn.
Pat DeAngelis?
Aye.
Anna Devlin Gothier?
Aye.
Counselor Ette?
Aye.
And Counselor Lord?
Aye.
Thank you. It's unanimous. The next is, I'm going to call on the Finance Committee. This is with regard to the Department of Public Works placement and the the fire station south of downtown locations and financing model. Bob, I'm going to call on you.
So we discussed this quite a bit and decided that we did not really need to select a model at this particular point in time. We leaned towards, I guess, models, what were they, 2 and 4 or 3, 1 and 3, I can't remember. Anyway, we 2 and 3, 2 and 4. Yeah. So basically it was, the features we liked were the 10.5% of the maintaining the 10.5% of the levy going towards infrastructure. The big difference between the two models was really the speed at which the amount of money we would borrow versus the amount of money that we could fund out of the cash capital. And we decided that it really wasn't at this point necessary to pick between these two models, because we could reevaluate as we go along. Can we, how much can we afford to borrow? How much can we afford to pay out of cash capital? So we'll probably be some sort of hybrid of the two by the time we actually get to it. But the features we did not like about Model 1, I think, was the fact that we reduced the levy, the percentage of levy to 10%. And what we didn't like about 3 was we delayed too long we delayed some of the projects into the future. So we just didn't think at this point, we don't need to kick the can down the road anymore. We need to go forward with these projects, get them done, and figure out how we're going to pay for them. So I think we didn't actually vote on this, but I think there was consensus on the committee that this was the way to go forward, and we wanted to go forward with the DPW facility the way it was described, which you'd have it, sort of distributed around the town in various locations, and the fire station at Hickory Ridge, which I think we were asked to do that by the council. Anything
Okay.
else? Does anybody else want to?
So I just want to be clear, you're not putting forward a motion with regard to the model, but what I think we do want to make sure is, are we putting forward a motion that basically identifies the two sites as proposed? Okay.
Finance never discussed the sites and whether it supported that
Okay.
those particular sites for those things at all. We were only referred the financial
Yes,
model.
You were, that's correct. Okay. Did you have another comment? You had your hand up earlier. Okay, Kathy?
Lynn, as Bob said, finance was asked to look at the financing models. We weren't specifically asked to look at the locations. Our sense from the council discussion before this was referred to us is that we were all fine with these two locations, and that the plan to move ahead, particularly on DPW, should begin. So if you need to separate that motion into two on a vote for the site, we were assuming those were the sites when finance was discussing. The one thing I want to add to what Bob said is we were all worried that 3 million for everything else was likely too low. And when asked like 3.5 or 4, we said, well, we can interpolate between them and think of what the number should be. But part of the issue of how much cash we have is we don't have to stay at 10% in the general stabilization fund. As Sean a while ago, we could draw it down to the 5%. So it's not just the capital stabilization fund, there's other money, and that those are getting replenished over time. So that's waiting for a year, getting moving on a schematic design so we know the actual price with one makes sense to us rather than focusing on the model, because the model is going to have to be adjusted by both how much money we have at the close of this fiscal year in terms of decisions. The other point, and I think it's in the Finance Committee report, but we talked a lot about it, that the JCP process, the 5-year plan, needs to really focus on not just year 1, but all 5 years. We need to have a really good sense of the urgent projects coming up first year and several others, so that we make sure we have space for them. Schools are one of them. And we in the past, having been on JCPC for several years, the focus has been on year 1, and we didn't ask a lot of questions about 2, 3, 4, and 5 in terms of the projects. We had a list of them, but really make sure these are high-level urgency projects, because now we're in a competing for funds, because JCPC doesn't look at these 2 buildings. The buildings are pushed off into some other place. So we had a discussion on that, that requires staff to come with more information and a focused look on all 5 years in the context of getting these 2 buildings going.
Okay. Pam?
Thank you. I appreciate that the conversation has gelled around the locations for fire and DPW. I could be really wrong because my memory lapses at times, but I don't recall ever really seeing a townwide map that really pins down what we're talking about in terms of DPW distribution. Similarly, we have, since we purchased Hickory Ridge, talked about a master plan for that property. And I have seen 0 master planning for Hickory Ridge, and yet we have now decided that maybe this is the best place for the fire station. We have never seen any options for, what else might be at Hickory Ridge, or how much space something needs, or what are the competing needs or uses of that property. So it's this lack of sort of explanation. And I know we're really good at this. We keep talking about something until it just basically gains enough traction to become the decision without really having a thorough discussion. And I would appreciate, I really do not want to vote on, maybe we vote on, do we have a distributed model for DPW as opposed to a single site? Maybe, a presentation on that would be very helpful. I might be very comfortable with that decision, but that's about as far as I want to go in terms of committing to voting on a location tonight.
Jennifer?
Yes, I was going to ask this question, but when the town manager gave his report, because he talked about forming two committees to, plan for the DPW building and the new fire station. And a number of people have written to the council who are, have knowledgeable and have municipal administrative backgrounds, asking if we'd ever considered locating the two new facilities on the same site, and maybe they could, that might even be a way to streamline costs. And I thought that was something that perhaps the two building committees, maybe they would meet together, that they could address. So I also didn't think it was I guess I saw DPW more being, because it was recommended that it be primarily located at the current location, but that I didn't think the fire station was a done deal.
Okay, we're going to compile some questions. Counselor Haneke.
So I understand that the manager would like us to make a decision on this because we can't move forward unless we make a decision. And we did have a presentation last council meeting, maybe, or 2 council meetings ago, but there wasn't a lot of information provided and there wasn't a lot of time to discuss it. And it seems like now, tonight, we didn't get any additional information. We did ask questions, very few, because we didn't have much information even before we got that presentation. And we didn't get additional information tonight. So I guess I'm operating with, I'm not sure what we're being asked to do tonight. But I do have a question. I know there is some concern of locating the fire station as far south as Hickory Ridge. I know we need to build a DPW building, and I know we need to build a fire station, and I know we need to do that soon. But could we put DPW at Hickory Ridge to alleviate the concerns about the fire station being so far south? I know previous studies on the fire station have indicated that Pomeroy might be too far south in terms of ideal or not. And I just don't know the acreage of the 2 sites. Is the DPW current site acreage similar in size to the Hickory Ridge size? And if they are, have we ever considered swapping the 2 out so that the fire station goes to DPW? It would also solve the swing space issue because you could build DPW at Hickory Ridge while it's still operating at its current location. And then once DPW opened, the fire station could then be built at the DPW where it has always originally been had. So was that ever considered? And what was the result of that consideration? And is that a decision that would need to be, presumably that's a decision that would need to be made soon, but I bring it up.
Let's collect any other comments, and then I'm going to ask the town manager to speak. Pat?
Please use your microphone.
Quick, yes, I'm sorry. When Chief Nelson was here and was our fire chief, he made had several conversations with council over the few years about Hickory Ridge being as far south as you could go, and that it was safe, and that it actually was a very flexible space, particularly because it had access from East Hadley Road and stuff like that for other areas in town. And he was an incredible tactician in terms of fighting fire and stuff. So I feel very secure in relying on his recommendation. I also, and my memory is not the best, but I remember Dave Zomack doing presentations about Hickory Ridge over the years, but the last one being with the fire station being there, with the possibility of a community building being there. So that was presented to the council, and I think we've done some talking about this. I don't know. So I just wanted to say those things.
I'm going to look to Paul.
Thank
And
you.
I think the real question, Paul, is what decisions do you need made?
Right. So I think counselors are asking legitimate questions and you clearly don't have enough information to weigh in and you'd like to see a little bit more clarity in terms of what the options. We can go through that and get a presentation for you at a future meeting. I think, I think Dave Zomack is ready and always willing to prepare a presentation on Hickory Ridge and what the status is of that. I think I had, for Councilor Top, I had talked about one committee, actually a joint committee for the TPW and fire, which is what we had before. I would seek to have, with your reorganization, ask the council to start thinking about having 2 members of the council on that committee. In case we ever split them and have 2 different committees, there'll be 2 councilors who have representation there. And then have other people who have knowledge of the building industry and, things like that. So I want to move forward with getting that committee set up. It takes some time. So I intend to start to move on that, start to solicit membership. The council can start talking about members for itself. And I think at a future meeting, I'm not sure we can have it ready for your next meeting, but in February at least, do more of a broader presentation about addressing some of the questions you've asked about, like what does a distributed model look like? The location on West Pomeroy was one of the 3 options that were listed in the study that was done by the town 10 years ago. But also the new fire chief, I've asked him to study up on it, and so he can bring his judgment. I knew where Chief Nelson stood, and Chief Stromgren has, we've had conversations that he wants to educate himself on the needs and things like that. So I think it's fair to give him some time to look at this as well. So I think putting this on a future agenda sooner than later, so that we can get to a decision point and we can start moving on at least one of these projects. So we have to get moving on them. And I think council has made it very clear to me that it's time to get moving on them through your goal setting process. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Are there any other requests of the town manager in terms of that future meeting and presentation? If so, please let Kathy.
I think they've already been mentioned, but just the acreage that DPW is currently on and how much can be built on. So what I heard maybe 5 years ago or 6 years ago when we started this, that they're built for nearer to the water than they probably could be built today in terms of how much of that land. And we asked really at the very beginning, could both of them be there? And the answer was no, there's not enough acreage. But Paul, I just think we need to see that, like how much land is there. And then this offsite, where up in North Amherst, it's quite a bit of land. I don't know how much is buildable, and I went out and walked it. It's already got some storage sheds and some equipment on it. It's got electric, it's got Wi-Fi, and it's actually got a transformer thing. So I don't know how quickly something could be built there, but just acreage. And when Pam's asking about distributive, if that's the big storage with Quonset's huts for equipment. And then similarly at Hickory Ridge, I've heard 8 acres, 7 acres, 5 acres, 6.5 acres in terms of the buildable amount we've got along Pomeroy, and that the fire station would need X. And then there's Pat's referring to, we had a diagram with something else was built next to it. I don't have a good sense of that. So if you could just come with much more, clearly not schematic design, but it only needs 3 acres and there's another 5, and who wants to live right next to a fire station, but it's only a few times a day that the sirens go. But and just something like that on what that layout looks like would be useful. I mean, and I'm saying the acreage, when we first bought it, there was, I heard more, and it keeps shrinking. So.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments on this item? Pat.
Comment to Kathy. I had been concerned about the sirens out at Hickory Ridge for the residents there. And that was also something Chief Nelson spoke about. And most of the time, when they leave the fire station, they do not have the sirens on. They only do that when they're hitting an intersection or something. So that's
Right.
very interesting. It's a lot quieter.
Right, so the questions could be something be built next to it, and how big can the something be?
Oh.
An apartment building is just,
Right, that,
you know,
yes,
how
that's
much
a
land?
different question than the sound.
Okay. That concludes that item until a future meeting. Town manager goals. Anna, we're not going to discuss the goals tonight, but would you please talk a little bit about GOL's discussion regarding the retreat?
Yeah, so this is included in the GOL report, but where we got, and I'd invite any other members of GOL to supplement my tale. Where we've gotten to is that ultimately the council will need to be going through the action item. We've talked a lot with the council about the objectives and the goal areas, but to narrow it or to zero in on the action items would be best done at a retreat, where that is the sole focus, where we can really dig into each specific one, where we're not pressed for time, and ideally where some of us don't have to get up at 5:30 the next morning for work. So when we get to the goals, it tends to be late in our meetings. We tend to be tired. So we wanted to bring the council together at a retreat with an external facilitator. We found that it would be most beneficial, meaning everyone could engage most fully in the discussion if we aren't the ones facilitating it and leading the meeting. So GOL talked about a couple different ways to do that, but essentially going through at this retreat and in some process, which is to be determined, engaging in conversation, but also looking at prioritization and determining if we can possibly remove some of the action items as priorities for the coming year, as goals for the coming year, in order to make sure we've got a set that is feasible and what we're seeking to do.
Okay. Pat, you have your hand up? Okay.
We do not have a date for the retreat. This will be something that we'll have to poll for.
Right.
So stay tuned.
Counselor Haneke?
So thank you for that clarification, because I was really confused when I read your report and it said that's what the plan was, but then at the very end, it had a motion to recommend adoption of the goals. So I was confused tremendously. But it sounds like if that motion was made, you're not actually recommending adoption of the goals at this time. You're recommending a retreat to discuss the goals.
We had to get the goals out of GOL. We have to recommend, the way I understood it was we had to recommend the adoption of the goals as GOL had written them. The council can change anything about a recommended thing that comes out of a committee. But GOL did say that they thought the goals were good and ready to go, but it's mostly the logistics of discussing the goals we thought would be better done at a retreat.
My next question is, I believe last year the retreat was held in late March, if not in April.
I think it was more.
The manager is operating now without goals. I would like to know how the manager feels about operating without goals at this point, and whether we are going to modify the goals, because we're going to be looking at 6-month goals if we wait till March to even have a retreat, because he writes his self-evaluation in October. It doesn't really sit comfortably with me that we don't even have a retreat date set, and it will literally be 6 months to complete, quote, a year's worth of goals. So I'd love to hear the manager about that, his thoughts.
I would also just like to add, we would like to very much have the retreat before March.
Paul?
Yeah, it's the time for performance on the goals shrinks. It becomes more challenging. The key piece for me is really about setting the budget and establishing the budget, because the budget needs to align with the goals. We're working on the budget very actively now through April. So getting the goals set and being clear about them that's an important feature of our budget preparation, because that's the main tool we use for implementing the goals. So yes, the speed would
Okay,
be
so
helpful.
at this point, GOL is officially asking the clerk of the town council to poll for a retreat. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Right. Counselor Haneke, did you still have your hand up? Kathy Shane.
I think a retreat is an excellent idea and soon. So this to me could be 4 hours. It could be an afternoon, it could be a morning, just something that gets us. In terms of operating without goals, if you look at the most recent draft, you go down one column, it says continuing, continuing, continuing. So it's not like we've got a whole bunch of surprises here. So then you can find some things that are called new, new, different, modified. We just talked about 2 of them. Getting DPW going, setting up a committee is on the list. So I don't think we've been silent about goals because there are so many that are continuing. There are some that are new that are contentious. And so I also would hope the retreat could focus on them right away, as opposed to and avoid, I don't mean to say this in a negative way, but avoid wordsmithing. I'm less concerned about the best word for something and more that we all understand what that sentence means. So we spent a really long time on climate. A lot of it, when we did have a discussion, a lot of it was words. And now we have a new climate one added, which is a good one. But so I would just like it to be a really focused discussion on the content. And as you said, on the actions, are we missing any? And the one I sent in is, we have a section called finance and infrastructure, finance and management, and we actually don't have any goals around finance. And maybe that's okay, but there's not one anymore. I guess it's assumed there will be a balanced budget and we will be rational. But in any case, so Lynn, I'm wondering, can we set one up so within the next 3 weeks, we have this retreat if we poll and we all say we need to do this?
Right. We will begin the process tomorrow. Yes. Are there any other questions or comments on the goals? Town manager, there are no appointments. There are few committee reports, but let's quickly do them. CRC, Pam Rooney and Jennifer.
Thank you. CRC met back in December. And as you noted, we're still working on the University Drive overlay. The public hearing is still open, still working on solar. Somebody tonight mentioned solar. Let's get it done, which is a really good thing. So that's, both of them are in progress. Sadly, not quickly.
Okay. Elementary school building, Kathy?
We're meeting this Friday, and the good news is this is the week construction is due to start, and the construction team leaders are joining us at the meeting by Zoom. So anyone who wants to see the faces behind something called CTA, which is the general manager, and they've been at a kickoff meeting, as Paul and Bob mentioned already, on getting ready with the school leadership and the facilities people. So this will be our first meeting as a committee with them, and it's partly just so we have some faces to put to the team. So that is Friday, and we've switched our meeting times. We're now meeting at 12:30, just afternoon. So one person couldn't meet in the mornings, and it will be about an hour. It's not going to be a long meeting.
Okay, thank you. Finance Committee, Bob?
Nothing more to report.
GOL, Anna?
Nothing to report at this time.
Jones Library Building, Pam Rooney?
Thank you. Jones Library Building Committee is expecting a meeting soon, but also was encouraged to participate or to listen in anyway to the trustees. The Jones Library trustees recently addressed some of the historic preservation concerns raised by the community and counselors, that some of the elements of the building be restored, including the slate roof, and the lack of need for a new drop slot in the front of the building. So these are good steps in the right direction in terms of starting to address the Section 106 Historic Preservation Act requirements.
TSO?
TSO has a written report which we sent on Friday to council by email. It's available for the public in the packet. I think that it sort of summarizes where we are with the two major projects that have been outstanding for substantial discussion. The other one, of course, we're working on, but now waiting for town manager is the waste hauler. If you have any questions, of course, I'd be glad to respond, but I think we tried to be comprehensive in the report.
Thank you. Any liaison reports? Jennifer?
Just to share that the Council on Aging is going to be attending a practicum that's at the Eisenberg School. They are going to be doing a practicum of needs assessments of the senior community in Amherst, and they'll be kicking that off on January 31st. But that's something I'll try and keep you updated on. And then I guess just to reiterate what Mr. Vandal said in his public comment, that there is a lot of discussion at the Community on Aging meetings about the need for a more robust senior center. So,
Counselor Haneke?
As part of my membership on the MMA Policy Committee on Municipal and Regional Administration, I was part of a panel that testified on Friday at the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, EOHLC, and they're hearing on the regulations to implement the ADU Affordable Homes Act ADU provisions in there. If anyone would like information on what I said on that, or what other people said, I listened to the whole hearing. Come find me.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments with regard to liaison reports? We've approved the minutes. A town manager's report. Paul?
Sure, I have a few things. April 20th, which is Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, will be celebrated by people seeking to make it a day on instead of a day off. And this is our CPOs working with our community participation officer, working with the recreation department and the senior services department to get people to do something positive that day. And I think that there's other events happening that day that others will be thinking about, but we're also thinking about the model that President Jimmy Carter had led about the way he involved himself in community as well. So pretty much a real staff-driven initiative, feeling like we want to do something, and just credit the team for bringing that to the fore. As Kathy said, elementary school, we had the kickoff meeting, which is very exciting. CTA Construction Managers LLC is the contractor. They're excited to get started on the project. There's a number of issues that they're going through the permitting part, the piece with our building department right now. So we expect that work to really get moving soon. So we're happy about that. Jones Library, as Pam said, the Section 106 review, there is still we got an answer from the Mass Historical Commission. The library trustees recommended that we accept their recommendations, which makes total sense, which is about the slate roof and the book drop. But there's still, the consulting parties still have to have a meeting, which they're trying to schedule this month when they can get the Mass Historical Commission to participate with the consulting parties as part of the 106 review process. So there are other issues that Bob Parent is just sort of trying to navigate through in terms of making sure the project can move forward. We were looking at a March 31 deadline that the MBLC has set, and we're hoping to shoot to achieve that deadline. And I also recognize that the financing for the project is something that is a concern to the council, and we'll be talking about that with you as well.
Okay. Jennifer?
Yes, I've asked this question before, but this is the week that the two contractors that submitted bids were asked to hold their quotes until. So since we're not in a position to award the contract because the Section 106 review has not been completed. Just wanted to ask, what is the process for asking the contractors to continue to hold their quotes?
Yeah, so this is the exact same process we went through with the elementary school project. Bob Perrin is having conversations with the contractors, asking them to hold their bids beyond the deadline that they said they would hold them for. So everybody agreed to it during the school project, and he's pretty confident that they will hold it for the library project as well.
Will they be asked to hold it until the review is complete?
I'm not sure exactly. I would assume, for sure. I mean, I think until we're able to sign a contract is where they'd be held. So I'm not sure exactly what dates he's looking at with them, but yeah.
Kathy?
I sent some questions. That was one of them to Paul in advance. So the other piece that's you're pushing against a deadline is, assuming this is moving forward, the discussion is pulling the roofing out and rebidding it by splitting off the slate. So all of that has to be done before you get a whole project. Is that correct?
So there's several different ways to do that. As you know, as you experience with the schools, different ways you can skin the cat. And so one of them is to pull it out from the bid. Another is to make a change order after the bid is awarded, which is what we did with the school project. So again, I just rely on Bob Parent to sort of work through what the best option is for the town. And he is in conversation with the designers and with the contractors on this.
Because during the trustee meeting, one of the things he pointed out is the roofers who have the roofing contract don't necessarily have slate roof experience because they didn't need it for the original
Right.
one. So there's,
Right.
so we're working against the deadline. And then I'm also hoping you'll come to the finance committee with what does the financing of all of this look like? You know,
Yeah, I think I mentioned that just a minute ago. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions of the town manager? Jennifer?
So I did want to ask, in terms of the waste hauler bylaw, if there was any status update on the RFP.
So the firm that we were trying to get to do the RFP is says they're not able to take it on right now. So we are now searching for a different firm to do the work. I'm sort of hoping that the MMA meeting, we'll dig out some more applicants, or people who will take it on. I've also appealed back to that same firm, which is the Collins Center, because it's a very easy procurement process with them, to see if they can make this happen for us. So that's, yeah, it's just sort of disappointing that they weren't able to jump on right away.
Councillor Ete?
I was just wondering if the town manager had a general idea when the reports, year-end reports on CRESS would come out.
Yeah, I don't have a timing for it. I know the director is meeting with the CSSJC. I don't know exactly when, this month or next, to give an update. I can find out for you though. But I know she's working on an update on where CRESS is at this moment in time. And I know that's going to be a concern for the council during the budget process. And we're sort of focused on that as well. So we can give a full report on where CRESS is during the budget process.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions of the town manager? Seeing none. With regard to President's report, there's not a written report this week. There will be in 2 weeks. Tomorrow I will be sending out an email asking people to express their interest in committee appointments, the ones that the president makes in consultation with councilors, and then also preferences for the committees that the council appoints. We will then move to those council appointments at the next meeting on the 29th. And also, 27th. Thank you. And then in addition to that, with regard to future agenda items, I will start developing an annual calendar and we'll send it out and ask people to start filling in things that they know will be coming up. Are there any questions on either of those at this point? Are there any councillor comments? Seeing none. Athena, I just need to clarify. I don't adjourn the meeting. I just move us into executive session, or do I adjourn the regular session?
You make a motion to move into executive session. It's on the motion sheet.
Yep.
And then you just make a statement that the council will not return to open session following the executive session.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So at this point, I'm making the following motion and seek a second to meet an executive session pursuant to general law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, paragraph 21A in parens and 1 in parens, to discuss complaints or charges brought up against a public official, officer, employee, staff member, or individual. The town council will not return to open session following the executive session. Is there a second?
Second, Etty.
Okay. So we're going to move to a vote. Counselor Haneke,
Aye.
Bob Hegner,
Aye.
Counselor Lord,
Aye.
Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Andy Steinberg,
Aye.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis,
Aye.
Anna Devon Gothier,
Aye.
Counselor Ette,
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer is an aye. It's unanimous. You will now go off of this link and you will receive another link. And meantime, we will ask the audience to leave and also the other note taker.